at the same time has at least paid lip service to the idea of the separation of powers and the rule of law, and has made a pretty big deal out of saying, I'm not going to be weaselly about this, I'm not going to sign a law and then not follow it. The law is a law, you have to follow the law. If you don't like the law, you seek changes in it. He said all that, but now he's saying, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's the double talk express.
That's ancient history.
Yeah.
And that really is.
I was just going to say, that's one of my favorite non-answers is, why you got to bring up old stuff, It's
actually hard to think of something that's more important in terms of an issue that's more important in terms of what the next president is going to be doing than how far does he think his powers go? Does he think that he has to follow the law, or does he think that he can pick and choose which statutes he follows based upon his own idiosyncratic interpretation of the Constitution? That's a pretty important question. I mean, that's why the Boston Globe did this whole, survey where they gave a list of specific questions having to do with executive power. But now McCain is saying, we don't need to talk about it.
Well, there's one good lesson here for him. I hope his campaign isn't listening, but it occurs to me that there's a pretty powerful lesson in that when you do these major flip-flops on issues like this, it's best to do them in writing rather than out loud in front of a TV camera, because then they can make a YouTube out of it and show both answers back and forth and make fun of you. But in writing, who's going to go read the National Review? I mean...
You're probably right. It's better not to do it on camera.
Yeah, there you go. And also, I wanted to bring up one more thing here real quick before I let you go, was the CIA exemption to the torture statute. I mean, this is the having it cake and eating it too to the nth degree here, where this guy is not just a war hero, but an anti-torture war hero who has the gravitas to oppose Cheney's torture regime because he knows, because he's been there. And yet, he turns around and rubber stamps everything that says the CIA can still torture whoever they want.
Yeah, and it's not clear whether that was a genuine change in his opinion, that he was told something that, maybe something secret that we don't know about, that changed his mind, or if he's just triangulating. He's in a sort of tough situation because he does have to play to Republicans, hardcore, self-described conservative Republicans, like like McCarthy in the National Review. He has to play to them and not seem soft, but at the same time, well, I'd like to think he has to worry about, other people who will see him as being, lawless or, going his own way and being unilateral. I think that the unilateralism of the Bush administration has gotten, a bad publicity. I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. Exactly how they feel about the warrantless surveillance, I'm not sure. But I think the notion that they've just been like steamroller and trying to get their own way without consulting with Congress and not paying attention to what Congress or the courts are saying, I think that has gotten a lot of negative attention for Republicans. So I think he does have to worry about that. But at the same time, he's got to placate the hardcore Republicans.
Yep, tough position. I'm glad I'm not running for president and have to pretend to oppose torture and then support it and all these contradictory positions all day and night. And by the way, I think I saw a poll over at Glenn Greenwald's blog that had a pretty solid majority opposed to the wiretapping stuff, just by the way.
Yeah, I imagine it depends on how you phrase it. But I was actually been surprised that there hasn't been more of an uproar about that. Because most of the email I get, of course, I'm getting published in places that are read by a lot of conservatives, and most of the email I get says, what makes you think the government wants to listen to your conversation?
Well, why do you care?
What's special about you? Why,
right.
You're so full of yourself. That's been the general response.
Yeah, and also they're fighting for your freedom. Well, all right, everybody. It's Jacob Sullum. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
He's the senior editor at Reason Magazine and a syndicated columnist. You can read him in newspapers all around the country. And this is Anti-War Radio. We'll be right back with Robert Perry after this.
change subjects. There's no other way to say it because we have a instant message here that I think is from T. Avande Alatin. I hope I'm saying that right. I do my best. It's about Ron Paul. How do you explain that Congressman Paul has raised more money than any other candidate from men and women in the armed services? And I just remind people, last week you and Congressman Paul had a little bit of an exchange over the armed forces, the future direction of this country. Is he, in fact, speaking more broadly for the military than you are in your respective positions on Iraq?
No. And the fact is that I know too many thousands of young men and women who are serving in the military. I get emails from them all the time. I don't know where the facts concerning more contributions from men and women on active duty in the military, and it may be accurate, but I know how the men and women in the military feel. I visit them too much. I'm with them too much. I hear from them too much. And I'll tell you what they're saying, exactly what I told Congressman Ron Paul. They aren't fighting over there for oil, and they aren't fighting for empire, and they aren't fighting illegally. They're fighting because they want America to be safe, and they believe that. Otherwise, they would not be putting their lives on the line. And frankly, Congressman Paul is wrong, and I don't care what his statistics are. I know what the American men and women who are serving want, and I know what they want, and that's to succeed there so they don't have to fight them here. And that's what they believe, and I'll believe that until someone shows me incontrovertible evidence otherwise, to the contrary. It's a fact that the young men and women believe that they're serving the cause of freedom, the people of Iraq and our own. Too much. And I'll tell you what they're saying, exactly what I told Congressman Ron Paul. They aren't fighting over there for oil, and they aren't fighting for empire, and they aren't fighting over there for oil. They aren't fighting over there for oil. They aren't fighting over there for oil. My friends, I will have an energy policy that we will be talking about, which will eliminate our dependence on oil from the Middle East, that will then prevent us from having ever to send our young men and women into conflict again in the Middle East. They aren't fighting over there for oil. They aren't fighting over there for oil. They aren't fighting over there for oil. My friends, I will have an energy policy that we will be talking about, which will eliminate our dependence on oil from the Middle East, that will then prevent us from having ever to send our young men and women into conflict again in the Middle East.
For so long it's not true. Wanted a woman, never bargained for you. Lots of people talking, few of them know. Soul of a woman.
Straight talk, a little straight talk. The success will be fairly easy.
I believe that we can win an overwhelming victory in a very short period of time.
Easy. It was easy. The American people were led to believe that this would be some kind of a day at the beach, which many of us fully understood from the beginning would be a very, very difficult undertaking.
I knew it was probably going to be long and hard and tough, and those that voted for it and thought that somehow it was going to be some kind of an easy task, then I'm sorry they were mistaken. Maybe they didn't know what they were voting for.
And I got to give you some straight talk, my friends. It's a tough war we're in. It's not going to be over right away. There's going to be other wars. I'm sorry to tell you, there's going to be other wars.